Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first Yulio Jump week, and thank you so much for joining me for our last session of the week, which is Yulio Jump for CET webinar. My name is Nicole. I'm one of the client success specialists here at Yulio, and I'll be hosting our session today. The main objective today is to introduce you to rendering for VR using the Yulio extension for CET. We'll focus on establishing a practical CET to VR workflow and explore how integrating virtual reality and augmented reality into your presentations can truly enhance your client experience. This training will cover a lot of information, so if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to enter them in the question box and I will answer them during the Q&A period at the end of our session. My contact details are also on the screen now, so if you'd like to follow up on today's webinar with any questions or additional support, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to work with you on that. Lastly, if you do have to leave today's session early, I am recording the full webinar and we'll send that to all registrants, so you'll be able to watch it later and share it with your team as well. So here's our agenda for today's session. We'll start off by going over how to install the extension in CET. Next, I'll cover how to prepare your model and render with Yulio Jump. Once we render our project, I'll show you how you can view and edit your VR project in Yulio. And like I said, we'll finish off with a Q&A period. So for those of you that are new to Yulio, Yulio Jump is a cloud rendering engine that can render your projects in minutes and can auto-apply navigation and lighting enhancements to turn your model into a VR-ready experience that your clients can enjoy in a VR headset or from their computer, phone, or tablet. To begin rendering with the Yulio Jump, you need to start off by installing the Yulio for CET extension, which can be downloaded directly from the Configura marketplace. So I'll open this now. So this is what it looks like when you go to install the Yulio extension. The Yulio extension is free to download. However, in order to use it, you do have to have an active Yulio license. With the Yulio extension, you can render 360 panoramas, which is the file you need for VR, as well as 2D perspective renders, which you're likely more familiar with. So here's an example, of, oh no. I was going to show you an example of a 2D perspective render and the panorama, but it looks like it's not working. So that's okay. You can see later. Okay, so today I'll show you how you can render both 2D perspective renders as well as those files that you need for VR. And you can do that with Yulio. All right, so once you've installed this extension, you can go ahead and open CET to start preparing your model for rendering. All right, so here's the model I'm working with today. At this point, it's pretty much ready to be rendered. However, when it's your turn to prepare your model for rendering, you're going to want to think about a few key things. First, for virtual reality experiences, we recommend creating a fully enclosed building shell, which includes 4 walls, a ceiling, and a floor. And if you look, or if I look around here, you'll notice that I have all of that here. So we recommend this because when rendering for VR, your clients are not only going to be seeing what's right in front of them as they would with a 2D render. In VR, your clients will be able to fully explore your space, so having a building shell environment will give them a more realistic and immersive experience. The Yulio Jump rendering engine is also optimized to work best in these type of environments. We do know that creating a building shell in some cases can take more time than you might have. So we do have a folder of resources that you can download, which includes a CET file of a building shell environment that you can use to show off typicals. And that's available on the project resources page on our website, which I can show you. So to get to this page, you can go to our website at yulio.com, Select the Resources tab and then select Project Resources. And if you scroll down here, here's that file that you can download that includes a building shell that actually looks like this thumbnail here. In addition to this, if you are a dealer plan or if you're on a dealer plan with Yulio, we do have additional building shell files available for you. So if you're on a dealer plan and you need help accessing those, you can reach out to me and I'll help get those to you. Okay, let's return here. So the next thing you're going to want to consider while preparing your model to render for VR is lighting. So Yulio Jump was designed to simplify the rendering process as much as possible and take complexities like lighting off of your hands. Yulio for CET has two primary methods for lighting your space and four different lighting options to choose from. So I'm just going to start off by going over method one. So this method uses native CET lighting and HDR environment mapping. This method of lighting your space will provide the most realism. However, it does require a little more work on your part and will require basic knowledge of native CET lighting. To use this model, you'll place lights throughout your space, and when you render with Yulio Jump, our rendering engine will acknowledge them as light sources, meaning the lights will be on. Another thing you can take advantage of when using this lighting method is HDR environment mapping, and this just allows you to add a real-world environment outside of your windows for added realism. The second method for lighting your space requires very minimal work on your part because it uses a smart ambient lighting model to light your space. So for this option, you would use Yulio Jump's interior or exterior lighting models, which don't require you to add any of your own lighting to your space. If you do place any lights in your space, this lighting model will render them as objects. However, no actual light will be coming from them. Instead, your light source will be generated from Yulio's smart ambient lighting. I'll go into more of the specifics of each model later on and show you what those can look like. Okay, so once your model or drawing is ready to go and you've placed any lighting you might need, the next step is to open Photolab. All right, so Photolab is where you're going to set up your camera views to create 360 panoramas for VR, as well as 2D perspective renders. So I'm going to start off by going over how you'll set up your camera views for VR. So for VR, each camera view, as you can see, I have two here. I'll just note that I've already created two different camera views. So for VR, each camera view will represent a new scene in your project. Setting up multiple camera views is how you'll be able to show off different areas of the space. So, like I said, I've already set up two camera views here, and I should note that the number of views you create will vary from project to project. Smaller spaces may only require 3 to 4 views versus larger spaces that may require 10 plus to fully showcase the space. Again, when you're setting up your camera views for VR, you want to keep in mind the viewer experience and how you want your viewer to move through and experience your space. So let's add a new camera view. So to add a new one, you'll just select New. Okay, so here's my camera view. It just duplicated the one that I had originally selected. And I'm going to place my camera where I want it. So I'm going to move over here. Oops. Just give me a moment here. Okay, and I'm going to turn my camera, turn my camera around. My program's just running a little slow at the moment because I have a lot of things going with the webinar. All right, let's move. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I want it facing this direction, but I'm just going to move back a little bit. All right, this looks about right. So here's an important tip. So when you're placing your camera views for VR, you're going to place your camera where you want it, just like I have. And then you're going to move closer. So it might look a little bit funny at first, but we do recommend that you do this because after you render for VR and you go to view that scene, it will always appear more zoomed out than you expect. So in order to capture the view that you truly want, you're going to want to place your camera in your ideal position and then just move closer. So this would just about be my ideal position, but I'm going to actually move my camera a little bit closer. Another step we recommend you take in Photolab is adjusting your camera elevation. So we recommend setting your camera height to about 5'6", just because that's average height. However, you can get creative with it and raise your camera height up to create kind of a bird's eye view, or lower it down to show the mechanics under some furniture maybe. We've also seen users set the camera elevation to a seated height and then place the view directly on top of a chair. So it kind of creates a unique viewing perspective. For this project, I am just going to be setting all of my heights to a standing height, which I believe it should be at already. Yeah, so that's the elevation I wanted at. So we'll just leave that how it is. Okay, so for 2D perspective renders, so you can set up your views in the same file here if you'd like. When you go to render with the Yulio plugin, you'll be able to select or deselect which photos you render depending on if you're wanting to render for VR or 2D. So you don't have to really worry about mixing them up or anything. So you'll set up your camera view for 2D the same way, except you don't have to zoom in. So I'll select new here. Now, if I want to show this as a 2D render, I'll just kind of place the camera exactly where I want it. I don't have to worry about zooming in. Whatever you see here is what you'll get when you render for 2D. So that looks good. I'll just keep it there. All right. So by default, when you create new camera views, they will be named photo 1, photo 2, photo 3, etc. So if you'd like to customize the name, maybe to keep track of whether it's for a 2D perspective render or VR, you can right click here and just select rename. So maybe we'll do photo 4 and we'll just distinguish this as a 2D render or photo. Okay. All right, so if you remember earlier, I mentioned that if you're rendering specifically with the CET native lighting model, you have the option to add HDR environment outside of any windows you might have in your project for added realism. So these extra steps will actually take place in Photolab. So I'll show you how to do this now. So first, start out by making sure your photograph is set up using realistic lighting. So let me just click on this here. So to apply realistic lighting, you'll scroll down in the left side panel here and click on the simple button and then select realistic. I've already done this. From here, you'll select the background thumbnail image. And this is where you can download any HDR images you want to use for your project. And we recommend using the images that are available here to you in CET. So you'll just download an image by clicking on one of the cloud icons, which they would appear here, but I've already downloaded these ones. So once you've downloaded that, Oh, another thing I want to note here is each HDR environment will emit different types of light based on the environment you select. So, for example, a bright, snowy landscape will emit a brighter light than a green space. So, that's something to also keep in mind when choosing your background image. All right, so once you download the image, you don't need to adjust any other settings here. You're just going to scroll back down and then select Advanced. And then you're going to open this Lighting and Shadows tab, and then select the drop down menu like I've done, and then select Image Based Light. So, Image Based Light is the only lighting model on this menu that is compatible with Yulio Jump. So, under the Image Based Light panel, click on the thumbnail here, and then that's where you can go ahead and select which environment you'd like to use. And then you're going to check off this box here, Use Image as Background. Okay, so if you've already created multiple scenes in Photolab, like I've done here, you will have to go scene to scene to apply that HDR background to each scene. So typically, we recommend creating your first scene in Photolab, applying the HDR background, and then creating the rest of your scenes so that the HDR environment gets auto applied for you as you create new scenes. All right, so we are all done here in Photolab, and our changes are automatically saved in Photolab, so I can just simply exit out of this. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about here is AR tagging. So if you don't already know, Yulio offers fully automated augmented reality publishing direct from CET. This is an optional enhancement to your VR project that lets you incorporate augmented reality hotspots into your VR experience. For your clients, this means that they can see project elements like furniture in full 360. They can also take it one step further by using their VR headset, phone, or tablet to see how the element looks and fits in their own physical space. So, to export augmented reality assets and then have them be created as an AR hotspot in your project, you must first tag the items in your model using Yulio's AR tagging convention. So to do this, we're going to start by selecting the tools menu here. And then we're going to select, part tagging. Okay, so from here, we recommend creating a new category called AR so that you can keep all of your Yulio AR tags in one place. So we're going to select new category and then just name this AR. All right. Next, we're going to select the new tag button and enter Yulio's AR tag in the label box. So Yulio's AR tag is hashtag Yulio AR plus the object name. So for example, your tag could be Yulio AR plus chair. And this is just to identify your each tag. So the next thing you're going to do is assign the tag to an item in your drawing. So I always use the tag individually option as it tends to be more precise. However, you can use any of these tagging. Actually, I'm not sure if you can actually use any of them, but typically I just use tag individually. It works great for me. So let's see. So I'm going to tag individually, and then I'm going to select the item I'm tagging. So I'm going to tag this chair here. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to tag, let's remove that one. And I'm actually going to tag the, oops. Let's see here, remove from selection. This one, tag individually. I'm going to tag this, not a bar stool, but high chair here. Okay, so that one's done. And we will tag one more item here. So new tag, gonna do Yulio AR plus, and I'm gonna tag this small side table here. So just write side table, tag individually, and tag this side table. And that's it. So I can now exit that. So you can repeat these steps to add as many AR tags as you'd like. Another thing that you can do is actually tag um, a 4-pack combination. So you can tag like a desk and a chair with it. Um, and you'll just do that by here. I can show you how to do that. So let's create a new tag. We can do maybe this soft seating. So I can actually tag this entire soft seating here, which are actually 3 different components. And so if I tag all of those under the same tag, they will export as a group. All right, so that's it. I will exit out of that now. All right, so now that we've set up our camera views, we've tagged our optional AR models, we are ready to render with Yulio. So to start, we're going to navigate to the Yulio extension for CET. So I have mine pinned at the top here. A lot of times it's usually at the bottom if you can't find it. So I have that open. Now, the first time you render with Yulio Jump, I am just going to select this render now button here. The first time you render with Yulio Jump, you will be prompted to enter the email address associated with your account just to verify your Yulio license. Once you've gone through those steps, you'll just come back to the Yulio extension here and open it up again. And this time, the regular Yulio Jump extension will pop up. It can sometimes take a few seconds, and I think my computer is just running a little slow today, so we'll just wait for that to pop up. All right, I don't know how long this is going to take just because my CET program's not responding right now, so I'll just kind of go into it and hopefully it'll pop up as I'm talking. So when the Yulio extension pops up, you'll see a few different settings. So some of these settings include an option to render with Yulio Jump or Yulio Jump Perspective. So like I said, if you choose Yulio Jump, this is where what you will use to create a VR project, and that project will process and upload directly to your Yulio account. The other option you'll see is Yulio rendering with Yulio Jump Perspective. So this is what you will choose when you want to render those 2D perspective renders. And those files are sent just directly to your email where you can download the JPEG file. The other setting option you'll see are lighting models. So that's where you'll select the lighting model that you want to render with. Oh, it looks like it's going to pop up here, so that's good. No, maybe not. Okay, we'll just keep going. Okay, so our lighting models. When you render with Yulio Jump, so for VR, you'll see when you render with either Yulio Jump or Yulio Jump Perspective, you'll see 4 lighting model options. You'll see CET native lighting, neutral materials, interior/shaded, and exterior/bright. So I'm going to actually open a sample project to show you how each of these different lighting models can look depending on your space. And hopefully while I'm doing this, our extension will pop up for us. Okay, so here is that Park Lounge project that I was actually working on, or that I had open in CET. So this first render here is with the CET native lighting model. So in order to use the CET native lighting model, like I said, you will have to place lighting into your space using the free CET Lights extension. This can be anything like fluorescent lighting, ceiling lights, sconces, desk and floor lamps, and all of this. Oh, great, it popped up. So we'll go back to that in a minute. So any lighting from the CET lights extension. I won't be going over, or I'm not going to be going over how to place and adjust CET lighting today. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, Configura does have some great learning resources available on their website that you can access. Okay, so when your lights are placed and you go to render, Yulio Jump will acknowledge them as light sources, like I said, and they will appear on. So as you can see, those lights that I've placed are um, what's lighting my space here. Now, I also mentioned earlier that when you use this lighting model, you can take advantage of the HDR environment mapping, which allows you to add an environment outside of your windows. So this is what that environment ended up looking like. And as you can see, it just makes it just adds realism to the project. So, okay. The next model you will see available is the neutral materials lighting model. So I'll switch to that now. So this model also uses the native CET lighting to light your space. However, as you can see, this model actually strips all color and texture from your space and replaces it with neutral materials. So this model was actually created for those times when you maybe want your client to get a feel for the layout of the space and the configuration of furniture before focusing too much on color, material, and texture. So that's this lighting model. And as you can see, the lights are still on here and I can still see that background environment outside of my windows. Okay. Next is Yulio's interior slash shaded lighting model. So this model works best in an environment typically with few or no windows. So it will produce an artificial light source within the space and make it so the space will be as evenly lit as possible. For this, and a benefit of using this lighting model is that you don't have to place any lights in your scene or worry about lighting your space too much. So there are lights placed in this scene, but as you can see, they do appear off. So this lighting is just being generated artificially. All right. Lastly, here we have the Yulia's exterior slash bright lighting model. So it looks pretty similar. So typically, this model works best in an environment with many windows or even a skylight. And this lighting model simulates real world lighting that you would get from the sun. So it's more physically correct than the interior lighting model, meaning any shadows and projection in your scene will look more realistic, as it's simulating how sunlight actually appears in a real world environment. Again, you don't need to place any lights in your scene to use this model. All right, let's return back to CET and I'll show you and open the extension. So here is the extension that I was talking about. It typically does not take that long to open, but here it is. So um, here's those settings that I was talking about. So like I mentioned previously, you can render with Yulio Jump or Yulio Jump Perspective. Here's where you'll choose your lighting model. Today I'm going to be using CET native lighting. So here for home, or I guess typically it says home, this is where you can browse and choose which folder in your Yulio account you'd like the VR project to upload to. Photos to render. So this is where you'll select the views that you would like to render that you set up in Photolab. So if you remember, I said that if you set up views for both VR and 2D perspective in the same file, you can select or deselect those here depending on if you're rendering for VR or 2D. So today I'm rendering for VR, so I'm actually just going to deselect that last photo there that I rendered for 2D. Now we have our project enhancement settings. So first we have add floor plan. So by selecting this option here, Yulio will automatically build a floor plan from your CET model. So I'm going to select that one. Add navigation hotspots is the next one we see here. So by selecting this option, Yulio will generate navigational hotspots for your project so that you can move scene to scene when viewing in Yulio. If you'd prefer to do this manually, you can add these in later, so you don't have to select this if you don't want to. I'm just going to select. And then the last one here is add AR models. So you'll want to select this if there are any items in your design that you have tagged as AR. When you select this, any of those AR objects you've tagged will be created and inserted into your VR project as an interactive AR hotspot. All right, so once you've selected all your preferences, you can go ahead and select Create VR Project. Now, the time to process and render will depend on the size and complexity of your project. To give you an idea, a smaller project like this one here should only take about 5 to 10 minutes. And then when your VR project is ready in Yulio, you'll receive an email notification to let you know. Something great about Yulio or rendering with Yulio is that it renders in the cloud. So it'll when you click Create VR Project, I'm not going to do it right now just because my computer is running slow, as we've seen, and I don't want it to pause my screen. So when you click Create VR Project, there will be a processing time of about like 10 seconds where you won't be able to use CET, but once it's sent to the cloud and while it's rendering, you will be able to continue using your computer as normal and continue using CET as normal as well. So that's great. Um, One other thing to mention here is if you rendered with Yulio Jump perspective, I think I mentioned it already, but your 2D renders will just be emailed to you and you can download them from there. All right, so we are done in CET for now. So let's just close this. I've pre-rendered this project, so we are going to actually let's leave this open or close. Okay, so let's go here. So now that I'm in my Yuli account, so when my project is ready, it will appear in that folder you've chosen and it will look something like this. So here's my rendered project. So we'll start off by viewing our project in browser mode. So browser mode just means that you're viewing the project from an internet browser on your computer, phone, or tablet rather than in a VR headset. There are a couple different ways you can open your project to view it in browser mode, but from this page, you can simply select these buttons here. Actually, nope, sorry, not those buttons. You can select this button, which is just to view in 360. So if I click on this, it will open that project in a new tab here. Now I'm just going to go back. Now, if you click into your project, you'll land on the project edit page. So I want to show you this because this is where you'll see all of your project assets and add additional enhancement assets like images and video. So here's all my scenes that have been rendered. Here are the AR models that I rendered, as well as the floor plan. And then I can go in here and add audio enhancements, images, video, and I can add text in the hotspot editor. So this is where you'll go to kind of enhance your project even more if you want to. If you're not adding any other assets to your project, you can simply click on this, again, this View in 360 button and open the project in a new tab. All right, so now let's take a look at our project. So while viewing in browser mode on a computer, you can just click and drag your mouse to look all around the scene. If you are using a touch screen device, you will just use your finger to hold and drag along the screen to view the project. So as we are looking around, you'll notice our navigation hotspots here in the scene, as well as the AR models that I tagged earlier. So sometimes when you render navigation and AR hotspots with Yulio Jump, their location or size can end up being slightly off. So if you ever notice this, you can always go into your hotspot editor. So back to that project page, click into your hotspot editor and adjust those hotspot properties. So if say my hotspot was not looking like it was maybe in the exact location or it looked a little bit bigger than I wanted it to look, I can click on the hotspot click on this editing tool and adjust the size of the hotspot, as well as just click and drag it to adjust the location to exactly where I want it. And you can do that same thing with your AR hotspots. I can just click on it and adjust that size of it, as well as the location. All right, so let's just exit out of that and I'll return back to my project here. All right. So let's get into using our navigation hotspots. So if you chose to add those navigation hotspots in your project, you can click on them and you'll navigate to a new scene. And that's one way that you can move throughout the space. So as you can see, I'm now in a new scene and it just gives me a different perspective of the space and a way for me to see furniture maybe a little bit better over here than I would from that other angle. So that's what that allows me to do. Another thing I want to point out is if you created a floor plan, you can activate it by clicking on this button on the bottom left side here, and your floor plan will pop up. If you generated your floor plan right out of Yulio Jump, you'll also see that your scenes have been placed as location markers on that floor plan. And this is just another way for your client to navigate as well as identify where they are in the space. So where I'm standing is highlighted blue, and I can navigate to a new scene just by clicking on one of those location markers. All right, so if you're curious about viewing in a VR headset, it is very similar in that it's super simple to navigate the experience. It does, however, just provide a much more immersive viewing experience. So we recommend the Meta Quest series of headsets to view in VR as we find they offer the best viewing experience at an affordable cost. To view in VR, you do have to obviously purchase a headset and connect that headset to your Yulio account, which does require some initial setup. It's pretty brief, but due to time, I'm not going to get into connecting a headset today. However, if you're interested in learning more about how to connect a VR headset, we do have some resources for you. So we have a knowledge base article here that goes into connecting a headset to your account. And you can access our knowledge base again just by going to our website, selecting the resources tab, and then clicking on knowledge base. We also offer some video tutorials on our YouTube channel. I recently did a webinar on using your VR headset with Yulio, which I went over connecting a headset. And we also just have some short videos here about connecting a headset. So that's a great resource to use as well. Um, that being said, you can always reach out to me if you're finding it a little difficult. I'm happy to help and walk you through that as well. Okay, the last thing I want to go over in our project is viewing our AR hotspots. So you can view your AR hotspots on a phone, tablet, or computer. However, I find the best viewing experience for AR is on a MetaQuest headset. So to view an AR hotspot on our computer here, we'll just click on the hotspot. And if you're viewing on a computer, really the only capabilities you have are just being able to see the model isolated as it is here and viewing it in full 360, which is still a cool experience. But to interact with, to view in true AR and really interact with the model in the context of your physical space, you can select this AR button here, and this will open a QR code. So you can scan this QR code with a smartphone or a tablet to just using the camera on your device. And this will open up the object in on your phone, and you'll be able to view it in the context of your physical environment. And you'll be able to manipulate the object by moving it around and resizing it to fit in your space. So I'm going to show you an example on my slides here of what this looks like. Oops, no, we don't want to open that. So this is my colleague Dana viewing an AR object on her tablet. And she's just going to scan around the environment for a few seconds, and then the object you'll see will pop up on her screen. So that, by the way, is an example of a four pack that they have tagged. So you can see they've tagged two desks and two chairs together, and she's able to use her tablet to kind of fit that product in her space. And then this is the experience of that same four pack, but on a VR headset. So it's similar to the phone or tablet experience in that you can view the object in your own physical space. It's just elevated even more because it's more immersive and like lifelike from within a headset. You can walk up to it, lift it, tilt it, and place it exactly where you want it. All right, that wraps it up. So that will be the end of our Yulio Jump for CET webinar and the end, I guess, of our first jump week. So I know that was a lot of information to take in, but I hope that you were able to learn more about Yulio Jump and how seamlessly it can fit into your workflow. Thank you all for joining me today. If you have any questions, please submit them in the chat box and I will stick around for a couple of minutes to answer those. As a reminder, if you want any additional support later on or if any questions come up later, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is up on the screen. All right, I'll stick around for a couple of minutes if you have questions, and I will answer those. Someone just wanted to verify that we were recording this. Yes, so I am recording this, and I will send you a link. Another question here is you recommended using realistic lighting. Is natural light / product lighting not compatible? I think that is when I was showing you how to apply the HDR environment mapping. Yes, you'll want to follow those steps pretty closely because um, it would not be compatible any of those other options. So yeah, you'll want to follow that portion step for step. You're welcome. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions here right now. So, like I said, if anything comes up later, please feel free to reach out to me. And otherwise, thank you for joining me and have a great day.